Moving to Australia can feel overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be. The Move to Australia directory from Smart Steps to Australia brings together all the essential services you need into one convenient place, making it easier to find the right professionals to turn your dream into reality. Whether you're looking for a trusted migration agent, competitive shipping quotes, guidance on buying your first home, or help relocating your beloved pet, our directory has it all. We've curated the best services to support your new life in Australia. Find everything you need to make your move stress-free, with experts just a click away. Visit directory.smartstepstoaustralia.com and simplify your relocation journey today.
Welcome to the New Life in Australia podcast, hosted by me, Karen Bleakley, founder of smartstepstoaustralia.com. Moving to Australia with my family was a life-changing experience, but it wasn't without its challenges. That's why I'm passionate about making the relocation and resettlement process easier for you so you can enjoy this exciting adventure. Join me and my special guests as we share professional secrets and tips, learn from people who've made the move, and discover businesses that can help you realise your dreams. Now is the best time to create the life you've always wanted. This podcast is here to show you what's possible and to inspire you every step of the way. Let's go.
Let's take a moment to acknowledge the Gubbi Gubbi people, the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which I live, work and play. I thank them for the privilege of being able to live in such an incredible part of the world, and I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Hey there, welcome to this week's episode of the New Life in Australia podcast. I'm your podcast host, Karen Bleakley, and in this episode I'm going to be talking about the cost of living in Brisbane. Now, I've had a blog post on my website for years and years about what the cost of living is like in Brisbane, and every year or two I go through it and I update it. I've just been back through it now, going through with my banking app, just making sure that all of the details are up to date and changing all of the amounts to reflect the current prices at the moment. Finding out about the cost of living is definitely something that I get a lot of questions about, and I do see a lot of comments about it on social media saying that the cost of living in Australia is really high, it's really expensive to live here, and I just hope that this really does give you a bit of information just to give you the insights into what the actual costs really are like. But equally, I don't want it to scare you, because I know that when I was planning my move, I remember seeing somebody's cost list of what their expenses were per month for living in Perth. I saw it in an online forum and it really scared me because the amounts just sounded so high. But what I wasn't really taking into context was the fact that over here in Australia, you generally will earn a lot more money than you would have done in the UK. So it really does balance things out. So don't let these amounts worry you. Just use it as a guide to just get you started with your planning. I've linked the blog post in the show notes so you can go over there as well and follow along, maybe with a notebook, just writing your own list so that you've got an idea of what your outgoings might be. It's also worth you listening to episode 10 of the New Life in Australia podcast. That's called Australia is Expensive, True or False, and there's a lot of really useful information in that episode as well. So we're coming towards the end of 2025 and I can definitely confirm our bills have gone up quite a lot over the last couple of years. So it was really interesting looking back at my old blog post and going back through the information. Definitely bills are going up, but I think that is the case everywhere in the world. I know I've just recently been back to the UK and I was really shocked about some of the prices there. Eating out, drinking out, supermarket shopping, lots of things had gone up a lot over there. So I think it really is, cost of living everywhere is going up. So I don't think it's just Australia where this is happening. So our monthly living costs here are far more than they were when we lived back in the UK. But there are also a lot of things to bear in mind when I say that. We do earn a lot more money here than we did in the UK. We also have made some different lifestyle choices here. We chose to buy a bigger home with a pool rather than a smaller home like we had in the UK. We run 2 cars now, whereas in the UK we only had 1 car because I used to walk most of the time. And here we also send our kids to a private school. So that definitely adds a lot of expense to our outgoings, although private schooling is a lot more affordable in Australia than it was in the UK. So we lead a really different lifestyle here. We've made different choices to what we've made in the UK. So it is really difficult to compare a like-for-like experience because we don't live the same kind of lifestyle that we would have lived if we'd stayed there. So just before I dive into what our actual costs are, just to mention that in Australia, it is quite common to be paid here weekly or fortnightly. You're not always paid monthly here. My husband gets paid weekly. I know lots of people who are paid fortnightly. So many of your bills you might want to pay monthly, you might want to pay weekly, or you might want to pay fortnightly, depending on when you actually get paid. Some of the bills you can break down like that, and some of them might be quarterly only, or they might be monthly only. So you'll have to look at the individual bill, and it will also depend on where in the country you're living as to what your options are as well. So wherever we can, we choose to pay ours by weekly or fortnightly payments because that just matches our income better. So starting with car registration, we've got 2 cars. Car registration is known as Rego in Australia. One of our cars costs $90 a month and our electric vehicle is $65 a month. You can pay these annually, as I say, or pay in instalments in Queensland. We choose monthly because it suits us better. We just have it set up as a direct debit. It just comes out of our account and it's just nice and easy. Car insurance is very much like in the UK. You can choose to pay it annually or you can choose to pay it monthly. So not everyone here in Australia gets car insurance. I personally think it's a no-brainer to get it. I think it's really important. We were hit by an uninsured driver a few years ago, and obviously then they had to pay to have our car fixed out of their own pocket rather than out of insurance. They were just lucky that we had a bit more of a beat-up old car rather than a Ferrari or something really expensive to fix, but it could have ended really badly for them if we had got a really expensive car and the cost to them would have been really high. So I do think it's really important to have. You can choose to pay your car insurance annually, or you can do it monthly, which is how we do it. Our cars are, the first car is $96 a month and the EV is $93 a month. But costs, as in the UK, they do vary depending on what inclusions you're including. So whether you want a hire car if your car is out of action, what excess you want, what replacement costs you're looking at for your car, and all kinds of things like that. So you can play around with those. There's lots of comparison sites to compare your car insurance. And I do really encourage you to go through and check that every single year because rates do go up and it is always worth just checking, or at the very least calling your insurance company to see if they can do you a deal the next year, because quite often they just put the rates up and up. For water, usually you will get here in Queensland a quarterly bill. We set ours up on something called smooth pay, which means we pay fortnightly payments every fortnight. Now, our usage is for a family of 5, and that includes standing charges. We pay about $76 a fortnight. We've been paying that amount for years and years, and it really hasn't changed. So I'm sure the bills themselves change, but obviously the smooth pay amount just evens out and it just stays the same. So thankfully, that is one of the bills that we haven't had to increase. It's also worth adding that in Queensland, when you rent, you only pay for your water usage. So your water charges when you live in a rental will be lower than this figure as well. You'll have to check how water charges work in other states just by Googling water charges and renting in New South Wales or Victoria or wherever it is that you're moving to, just to get an understanding of that. Next, electricity. This is an almost impossible one to give you an answer to because I see constantly people discussing in community groups what their expenses are relating to electricity, and it varies from almost nothing to thousands of dollars. It really is one of those things where you can't compare like for like because people live a different lifestyle, they live in different types of houses, they have different things connected to electricity that charges different amounts. So it's a really difficult one. Now, we have an EV that we charge, which obviously adds expenses to our electricity bill. We run a pool, we've got ducted air conditioning, and all of those add costs for running our electricity. We also have 3 teenage kids who are always online, who are always on computers and always on devices. So we definitely have a really high energy consumption in our household. When we first moved into our house, we put in a solar system, and last year we actually upgraded it to a bigger solar system because the original system just wasn't big enough for our needs. So now we've got a bigger solar system, and we also had a battery installed. Now this does reduce the cost of our bill. Unfortunately for us, it wasn't really a big enough battery, and our bill still comes into around $100 a month. So even with the solar and battery, we still have that out-of-pocket cost every single month. Now, I know people with bills that are, say, $2,000 a quarter. I know people whose bills are $1,000 a quarter. I know people who barely get any bills. And it really is really difficult to compare like for like. Some people got solar at a time when there were really high feed-in tariffs that have really allowed them to ride the wave and not have to pay out a lot for electricity. Now, feed-in tariffs now are very low, so you actually don't earn a huge amount from having solar. You actually benefit a lot more by making the use of your solar by using that energy yourself. So that's doing things like doing your laundry, your dishwashing during the day, running your air conditioning while the sun's high in the sky, and then turning it off as the sun starts to go down and you're about to start getting charged for that. There's also so much that varies with your energy bill, things like how much insulation you have, whether your hot water is fueled by gas or electricity, whether you have a pool, how energy efficient your pool system is, how energy efficient your home is, whether you have solar panels and how long ago they were installed, have they been cleaned recently. All of those different things can help vary your electricity bill. Just a very rough estimate, I think if we didn't have a battery and a solar system, bearing in mind we've got an EV in the pool and we have quite a high energy usage house, I would imagine that our bill would be more like $500 upwards a month, but that really is just a guess. It's really difficult to say. Now, gas. We don't have a gas hot water system here. We don't have gas central heating or anything like that. We just have gas cylinders that fuel the cooking hob in our kitchen. It really is a very minimal expense for us, but obviously if you have gas to your property, then you're going to end up with a higher gas bill than we have. For us, we just pay a gas cylinder hire of around $120 a year. Plus, when we need the gas cylinders refilling, they come and they refill it for us and we pay a bill. I can't even remember the last time we had that done, but I think it was probably $200 or less per refill. When we first arrived, we had a rental and we had gas heating our hot water system. So our usage bills there were higher. But here, as I say, we live in an area where there really isn't gas mains and it's not very common. So it's a really minimal expense to us, just a few dollars really over the year. Now, in terms of council rates, this comes in quarterly for us. I know that this is definitely a lot lower than our rates were in the UK, and it definitely is much lower than what people who I know in the UK are paying at the moment for a similar kind of size property. But our quarterly bill comes in at $677. It's worth mentioning that in Queensland, you only pay rates as a homeowner. You don't pay that bill when you're renting in Queensland. So definitely when you first arrive and you're renting, your bills will be lower than when you actually buy your home. Next one is mobile phones. Now, this really does vary. Again, when I'm in community groups, I see people talking about paying out like quite a lot per month for their phone bills. We don't use a huge amount of data on our phones, but we have some amazing legacy deals, which unfortunately are no longer available for my husband and I's phones. I think we pay about $120 for one of us a year and $150 for the other of us a year. So really, really low. Our twins who got phones last year, we had to shop around and we were looking around for the best deal for them. At the time, we found a plan with Kogan that was $180 a year for them. That includes phone calls, texts and data as well. So it's not too bad a deal, but I think it's worth shopping around. Aldi also has really good deals for mobile phones as well. So when you get here, just have a look around, shop around and try and find the best deal that you can find. And quite often these annual plans are the lowest option out there rather than a monthly plan. For home internet, we have a package that is $100 a month. We can get cheaper packages here. There's definitely cheaper packages around, but this one includes quite a high level of internet usage, quite a fast speed. So we're fairly happy with that. That sort of seems to be about average. We could save a little bit if we shopped around, but that's what we're paying at the moment. Also, another subscription that we have is Netflix, which we're paying $29 a month for. Again, I think that's really handy for us because we've got a family of 5. We use the TVs in all different rooms, so that keeps everybody entertained. When it comes to health insurance, this one may be optional for you on the visa that you're on, or you may have a requirement for your visa to take out health insurance. There's different types of health insurance if you do need one for your visa. So have a look into getting lots of quotes for those just to find the most economical for your needs that gives you the coverage that you need. We're really lucky we received subsidised health insurance through my husband's work. So what we pay won't be comparable to taking it out privately. So it's not really worth me sharing what we pay for that here. But when we first arrived, we had a private health insurance policy for the family of 5. It cost us about $260 a month. That was through Bupa. That was a long time ago. That was 2015. So that will definitely be a lot higher right now. But it's definitely worth shopping around and having a look at comparisons and considering what you're going to want your health insurance for. For us, we've found it really invaluable. We've had quite a few operations, probably between the family, about 5 operations since we've been here, things like tonsils out and things like that, nose operations, adenoids, all kinds of things. So we found that's been really helpful to just allow us to just go private right off the bat rather than needing to wait in the Medicare system for appointments. It does involve paying out a fee as well. Most of the operations that we've had have been out of pocket about $1,000. In my opinion, just knowing that you've got that there is really important. Right at the moment, while I'm speaking, I'm actually in the system for a Medicare appointment, and I've been told that it's actually a couple of years to get seen by this specialist. So now I know that I'm actually just going to go straight ahead and arrange a private appointment with a consultant. It will cost a few $100s, but to be able to see somebody right away rather than waiting a couple of years is so worth it. Also, it's worth making a note of the fact that with health insurance, if you're a higher income earner, there are benefits to taking out health insurance as well when it comes to tax time. So I'll pop some links to that in the show notes as well. Buildings and contents insurance is the next one on my list. At the moment, we're paying out $165 per month. This has gone up so much in the last couple of years, and I try and be really careful. I put us with a really high excess, and I'm really careful about what I include or don't include to try to keep the cost down as much as possible. But realistically, it almost went up by almost 50% last year. So it really is one of those costs that you do just need to stay on top of, just keep shopping around for, keep looking to see if there are any better deals out there. So I'm going to be shopping around again soon to see if I can find anything cheaper than that. But unfortunately, when I shopped around 6 months ago, that was the best deal that I could find. Next comes your mortgage or rent. This is going to be your biggest expense when you move to Brisbane. Now, the amount of this will really depend on the size of your deposit and what house you're looking at moving into. If you're thinking about buying a house in Australia, have a look for a broker who is experienced at helping new arrivals find a mortgage. Brisbane house prices have increased so much over the last 10 years. I've got quite a few podcast episodes worth listening to, so I'll pop some of those in the show notes. But our house probably has doubled in price in the last 10 years since we've owned it. So house prices really do go up really quickly. Our rental, when we first arrived in 2014, was a 4-bedroom modern property in Scarborough, which is in Moreton Bay. That cost us at the time $440 a week. Most similar houses that I see in the area now really are much more like $600 to $1,000 per week. So definitely more like the $700, $800, $900 mark. When it comes to buying your first home, if you're moving to Moreton Bay, which is the area where I live, you're probably looking at about $800,000 to $1.2 million. Obviously, that's just a very rough guide of the price of a house. So you've got townhouses, you've got units if you want to bring the price down a little bit, but house prices here right now are very competitive. So it's definitely worth either speaking to a buyer's agent or getting a mortgage broker on side so that you know what you're looking at and what realistically you're going to be able to afford to buy. Also, realestate.com.au is the place to go for information on buying and renting. So play around with different suburbs to get an idea of the pricing in different areas. Of course, the closer that you go to the city, the more expensive it's going to be, and likely the smaller the plot's going to be. Further out, you're going to get a lot more for your money and a lot more space. So next one is life insurance or trauma cover or income protection insurance. I think these are really important things to consider. You don't want to make the move to Australia and cancel your cover from your home country and then move to Australia and not have some solid coverage behind you. So I do think it's worth looking into this. How much that's going to cost you will really depend on how much you want to be covered for. So do your research, have a look at some of the comparison sites to get an idea of what your costs are going to be. You can also find that you can take out policies within your superannuations. So if you have a job, you might find that you're covered automatically for some of it in your superannuation, or that it's actually something that you can set up separately within your superannuation. So compare the options, see what's the best option for you. But in my opinion, it's an essential cost because if something happens to one of us, we don't want the other one to have to move back to the UK or to be struggling with the cost of a mortgage or school fees or something. So we have our life insurance set so that it covers the cost of the mortgage, it covers the cost of any major expenses for a year or two for us, and also covers anything like our school fees or any car payments that we have or anything like that, just so that we know should the worst happen, the other person won't be in a difficult position. Now that's it for the main living costs. In terms of lifestyle expenses, you're going to have to pay out for fuel. Now petrol costs here are a lot lower than they are in the UK. There's a few different websites you can check, like Petrol Spy and Motormouth. They give you an idea of what petrol costs are in the area that you're moving to. Just note that they do change all the time. They do vary a lot. At the moment, when I'm just recording this, they're about $1.80 to $2.20 per litre. But as I say, it really does vary. So have a look at those. But petrol costs are definitely something that's a lot cheaper here in Australia. Takeaways and eating out, again, I find them so much cheaper, especially having just been back to the UK and eaten out quite a bit. I was really shocked at the cost of going out and about and eating and the cost of takeaways over there. So I've come back and I really do appreciate how much cheaper it is over here. So as an example, my kids love Domino's. To get a pizza here, just for the value basic pizzas, it's about $7 a pizza, which is so much cheaper than we used to pay in the UK. Although the pizzas are smaller, but it's still so much cheaper. Generally, when we have a takeaway for our family of 5 with 2 very hungry teenage boys, it costs us in the region of $60 to $120. So the fast foods like KFC or Hungry Jack's, which is the Burger King equivalent here, is cheaper, with things like Thai or Indian are at the top end of that budget. So school fees, if you're on a temporary visa in some states, you will need to budget for school fees. So I've got some posts about schooling, which I will pop links to in the show notes as well for you to have a read about. Even if you're on a PR visa or you're moving to a state that doesn't charge temporary visa holders for schooling, you do still need to budget for some fees. We have voluntary contribution fees. You're going to need to budget for books, for stationery, for school trips, for camps and for uniforms, and things like instruments or any extra lessons that you might be booking into. Some schools might require you to buy an iPad or a laptop. Some schools might require that in primary school, or they might only require that in high school. So do some research to try to understand what your school fees are going to be when you arrive in Australia. If your kids go to a private school, you can usually set up a payment plan to suit you for that. So you can usually pay in advance up front for the year and then get a discount off your fees, or you can quite often charge your fees monthly, termly, fortnightly, even weekly. And you'll find that some private school fees do include books, stationery, iPads, school camps, excursions, swimming lessons, and all of those extracurricular things. But it really does depend on the school. Our private school, we do get a book list at the end of the year, so we do still need to buy stationery and some books. Our school provided iPads up to the end of year 9, and then after that we had to buy laptops for the kids. So I do know other schools that provide all of that all the way through. So it really does depend on the school that you're going to. But things can add up really quickly. So even if you're going to a state school, then things like swimming lessons or excursions or camps can definitely add quite a bit to your budget as well. When it comes to family days out, we find that to be a lot cheaper over here in Australia. For a start, there's so many free things that you can do. You've got the amazing weather, the beaches, the parks, the playgrounds, bike rides. You can just go out and about a lot more without spending anything, and quite often parking is free as well. I also find that annual passes for attractions are a lot more affordable here. For years and years, we had annual passes for Lone Pine Koala Sanctuary in Brisbane, which is a brilliant little attraction, great for younger kids. And as the kids got a little bit older, we bought passes for Australia Zoo. The Australia Zoo passes at the moment are $149 for an adult for an annual pass and $109 for a child. I think that's really good value. The Lone Pine Koala Sanctuary Pass is even cheaper for a family of 2 adults and 3 kids. It's only $263 at the moment. So I think that is an absolute bargain. And with those two, you can actually take your own picnic into the places too and actually just sit there, eat your own food. You can just buy the pass and then you can go there and have minimal expenses, apart from if your kids twist your arm when you get into the shop at the end, like ours used to do. But apart from that, that's your only real needed expense when you get to those places. And it meant that we could go out a lot with children without actually having to spend out all the time. There's also some amazing theme parks here on the Gold Coast. So you've got really, really cool places to go with really amazing water parks, roller coasters, really exciting attractions. So again, you can buy an annual pass for those. They are more expensive for the annual passes compared to Australia Zoo. And also you can't take picnics into those. You have to buy the food when you get inside. But they are still a really good value for a day out because you can just use them again and again. And some of the annual local passes that you can get are a really great deal as well. When it comes to sports and activities, if your kids do swimming lessons or tennis lessons or scouts, you're going to need to add some money in your budget for this. Classes for things are usually around the $17 to $35 per session mark per child. It really depends on what activity you're doing. Some involve uniforms. So for instance, the surf club Nippers, where we were members when ours were little, I think the vest was something like $20 and the cap was $20, and then there was an annual fee to join as well. But it wasn't very expensive to actually take part. And I know Scouts is something that's actually quite affordable as well. So there's loads of options, and you might actually find that your kids' school does lots of activities after school as well. Some might be included, some might be extra. So it's worth looking into what activities your kids might want to do, and considering that they might want to take up something brand new in Australia. Maybe they want to learn to surf, or they want to go paddleboarding or do something outside. So there's lots of opportunities here, and we've got loads of great activity centres for people to go to try out some new things. Next, I think it's important to make some budget for holidays. If you're going to want to save for a big annual holiday, or you're going to want to budget for different short breaks through the year, and really importantly, budgeting to go back to your home country sometimes, because that really can add up. It can be quite a hefty expense when you factor in flights and insurance and maybe hire a car when you land, and maybe an Airbnb when you land. There are definitely a lot of costs involved in going back for a holiday, even if it's just for a couple of weeks. So you need to budget that within your income and allow some savings to go towards your holiday budget. But equally, I think it's really useful to budget for going on some short trips within Australia as well, because there is so much to see and do here. It's such an enormous country, and there are so many amazing experiences that you can have. So hairdressers is another one of those regular expenses. I absolutely love my hairdressers. I go to a place called Beautiful You in Margate in Moreton Bay. So if ever you go there, tell them I sent you, because they're amazing. They're really good fun, and I really love going there. I pay about $210 for a cut and colour, which I personally think is a really good deal for what I get. My husband goes to different hairdressers, different barbers around the area. He tends to pay between $30 and $50 for his haircut, depending on where he goes. The kids usually pay about between $20 and $50 as well, depending on what kind of elaborate skin fade or whatever it was that they want at the time. So some schools do have strict policies about hair, so it's worth finding out if your school has a policy about haircuts. My kids' school do require it to not be in the eyes for boys, and not to be on the collar as well. And girls need to have their hair tied back at all times. So we do end up going for regular haircuts. So clothes is next up. We don't spend a huge amount on clothes. We tend to go to shops like Kmart, Target, Big W, Cotton On, things like that to go and get clothes. Personally, I think clothes here are really good value. Definitely feel like we get the sort of same deals as you would get at somewhere like Tesco or Asda or Sainsbury's. I really love going to Myer for dresses. They have some really lovely summer dresses. I tend to stock up when they're on sale. So clothes isn't something that we spend a huge amount on. Just go around the shops when you get here and you'll find the kind of shops that have your style in. But as I say, Kmart, Target, Big W tend to have some great clothes for kids. And shoes, we used to spend a fortune on shoes in the UK. Here we live in sandals or in thongs. We don't tend to wear shoes a lot of the time, apart from when we're going to school or to work. So our kids have formal shoes and sports shoes for school. We go shopping every sort of December, January time during our summer holidays to stock up for the new year. We don't really buy a lot of shoes other than that, just picking up sandals, thongs, things like that. So to be honest, through summer, our kids and us mostly just wear bare feet. We don't really wear shoes a lot, don't really wear slippers very often in the house or anything like that. So we don't actually spend very much on shoes here. It's just the formal shoes and the sports shoes for the kids when we come into the summer holidays and we're getting ready for the new school year. And they probably have an extra pair or so of trainers, runners to wear here and there if they go out and about. We really don't spend a lot of money on shoes. In the UK, I used to love going out and buying high heels and buying posh shoes and things. It's just not something that I do here. In fact, you actually find that the shops are filled with people just with bare feet here in Queensland, just walking into the shop or in the shopping centre without shoes on at all, just going shopping. So shoes is definitely an area that we've saved on after moving to Australia. Next, coming on to a biggie, which is food prices in Australia. Now, I do tend to find that food shopping in the supermarket in Australia is more expensive than I found it was in the UK for most things. But I do find that when I plan my meals, which is what I tend to do because my brain can't work at the end of a school day and at the end of a work day to decide what I might want to cook, I like to have an idea of what I'm going to cook and have I got the ingredients in stock that I need to make it. So I plan my meals ahead and I do fortnightly shops. I do one big shop a fortnight. I might pick up the odd little bit here and there, but I actually find that I can get my big shop a fortnight down to in the region of 450 to 480 a fortnight for the family of 5 of us. As I say, that does include 3 teenagers. 2 of the teenagers eat their body weight in cereal every day, so it can be quite expensive with them. I do think that's actually quite a good deal. I know a lot of people that do spend an awful lot more on food shopping than I do. I also make the use of Costco. We're really lucky here to have Costco in the suburb where I live. So we do bulk buy food like chicken and mince and things like that. And I usually spend $200 to $300 in there every few weeks, which just gives us that bulk to fill the freezer with. So I think that we do eat really well. We buy plenty of fresh fruit. We buy plenty of meat. We buy plenty of luxuries. And I think that it's just planning is how we keep our costs down fortnightly. And also quite recently, I've moved from shopping all the time at Coles or Woolies to shopping at Aldi, which does take time out of my day. And I've been really fighting it and resisting it for a really long time, but it really does save me an awful lot of money. So I did compare it when I first started shopping there, and I do think that I save about $80 per shop when I go there. So that really does add up to quite a big saving. As I said, I have friends who easily spend $1,000 a week on food with smaller families than mine. So it's definitely one of those expenses that's really difficult to predict for somebody else because I just don't know what your shopping tastes are like. I don't know whether you only buy organic things or whether you really like to go to the shops every other day and stock up, or whether you buy in bulk like I do, which really does keep the costs down. Also, this shopping price doesn't include alcohol. You can't get alcohol from the supermarket here in Queensland. You can in some other states, but here in Queensland you can't. So there's definitely costs to add if you want to add booze to have at home. So I hope going through all of those costs really gave you an idea of what your living costs might be if you move to Brisbane or other cities in Australia as well. Is Australia affordable? I think it is definitely more expensive in a lot of ways than the UK, but there are definitely areas where life is cheaper in Australia. Eating out is definitely cheaper. Some bills are cheaper, and day trips I think are cheaper. So I think it really is swings and roundabouts as to which one is overall cheaper. When it comes to planning your move, I do think it's really useful if you track your costs so that you can manage your relocation budget so that you know what to expect, what's confirmed, and you know exactly where you are financially. The other thing that I would add is shop around when you arrive. Don't just sign up to the first thing. Make sure you spend a bit of time. It does take time, and I know that when you first arrive, you've got all this admin. Even if you need to kind of set and forget some of the bills, like say your mobile phone, maybe sign up to something on a monthly basis initially, and then a couple of months down the line when you've got more free time, spend the effort actually looking around to see if there's any better annual plan deals out there. But it's definitely worth shopping around. There's often better deals out there. There are loads of comparison sites and lots of opportunities to save money and cut your costs, whether that's for utilities or the internet or your mobile phone or even your mortgage. When it comes to actually getting a mortgage, you want to be shopping around with that as well. Now, your cost of living is going to be really different to mine, but I hope this has given you a good starting point to work with. So when you get here, you get a job that really will help you work out what your budget is going to be, and you'll create a lifestyle that fits within that budget. My main tip is to stop thinking of the cost of living in Australia in pounds. When you get here, you will be earning in your local currency. Focus on that. Don't think about pounds and comparing it, because you'll be earning dollars and you'll be spending dollars, and that's really all that matters. It doesn't matter how it compares to UK pounds. If you'd like some support with the admin and the planning, I've got my Ultimate Emigration Checklist bundle available. I'll pop a note to it in the show notes. It really does walk you through the things that you need to do before, during and after your move, and it helps you plan and schedule when you're going to do different things, and it really does just take that weight off your shoulders to make it stress-free. So that's it from me this week. I hope you enjoyed looking at my cost of living in Brisbane. I hope it didn't scare you too much. You just need to get over here, start earning in Aussie dollars, and then build your lifestyle around that. it will all fall into place. But I think it's a really handy thing to anticipate what some of the costs are going to be for you when you do get over here. I hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to catching you next week. In the meantime, let's get building your new life in Australia, one episode at a time.